The Flash is just insane. And I mean that in the absolute worst way possible. And there are probably a lot of things that you could blame it on. The production hell if the movie was in for like 10 years, the PS1 looking CGI, Ezra Miller being a menace in real life, or even a dying cinematic universe that Warner Brothers doesn't even know if it wants the movie to be a part of or not. But I feel like a lot of that could be forgiven if I just enjoyed Ezra Miller as the character in general. And this is probably where my own biases come in, but what are we doing with this casting? Ever since his first appearance, I never bought him as the Flash. I guess I want to know who thought it was a good idea for him to be this super awkward, pseudo autistic person. Like, the Flash is quick witted and genuinely funny. You can look at any of his animated appearances or even the show on the CW, which has its own problems, but it at least nailed the Flash character. And if one Ezra Miller wasn't bad enough, the movie features two of them as the main characters, who are both in like some kind of competition to be the most annoying version of the character they can be. And as I'm looking at the reviews online, people were saying like, oh, it's fun, it's a good time, all this other shit. And for casual audiences, I can see how you can just turn your brain off and not think about this nonsense. But people are so wishy-washy when it comes to things like this, because when X-Men Origins Wolverine came out, you all were on its ass and saying how bad it was, but like, this is the same quality. In fact, this is worse because at least X-Men Origins had Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. This is like if Pete Davidson were playing Wolverine, and no amount of cameos are going to save this movie. Yeah, it was cool to see Keaton as Batman again, but that's not enough. It was cool seeing Ben Affleck as Batman again, that's not enough. Supergirl was cool to see, it's not enough. And I don't know if I'm all multiversed out, but I couldn't find myself caring about the story in the slightest. The movie draws like halfway from Flashpoint, and it just becomes so tiring. Not only is it tiring because we've seen this type of thing already with No Way Home and other multiverse films that have come out in the past 5 years. For some reason, there's been like a surge of those types of movies. But these multiverse, cross-dimensional time traveling things are even annoying for The Flash. It's getting old. We've seen it in basically every animated version of The Flash. The TV show version goes back in time and fucks something up like every other week. And even Ezra Miller's version of The Flash, most of the time we're seeing him, he's manipulating time somehow. Like, at some point, this is old. I don't know how they paid off Tom Cruise and James Gunn to speak positively about this, or maybe those two saw the film early in its development, in which case I can kind of understand this movie would be okay if somebody was pitching this as a rough draft. But to release it like this is a bit insulting. I'm mad that I paid money for it, but I should have known. This movie is just like a Frankenstein's monster of unfinished ideas, which makes me upset because even though this film has been in development hell for so long, there were a lot of different sources that the movie could have pulled from in order to improve its quality. But so far we have a terrible lead actor, a tired story and concept, and cameos that either don't make sense or are complete nostalgia bait. Do you know why it was cool to see Nick Fury showing up at the end of Iron Man, or Iron Man showing up at the end of The Incredible Hulk, or any of these things that Marvel has been doing for the past however the fuck long? Because it was very clearly going somewhere. You had reason to believe that the person that showed up would make an appearance elsewhere in this growing universe, and that you would be able to appreciate a continuity that's being established. So someone please explain to me why 62-year-old bat nipple George Clooney is at the end of this movie. We know he will never show up as Batman again, and at that point you just want nostalgia credit. It's annoying because it's a waste of time. Like, what was up with Nick Cage's Superman? Very few people are going to understand that that was a reference to a Superman project that never got off the ground. Most people are just going to be like, oh, okay, that kind of looks like Nick Cage. Emphasis on kind of, because again, what the fuck was up with this CGI? But you had the perfect opportunity to incorporate Nicolas Cage's Superman into this Flash movie. He could have been the Superman that needed to be saved. And yeah, Supergirl was cool. She wasn't really a bad part of this movie. But what's the purpose? This is already a dying universe. Why cast somebody that you're hoping will show up in later iterations of the character? This was the perfect opportunity for people like Nicolas Cage to shine in a role that they never got the chance to shine in. They got it right with Keaton. I just feel like with this sort of movie, it would have been much better if they went down the Civil War route and have it technically be a Flash movie, but kind of be a Justice League movie. The same way that Captain America Civil War is technically a Captain America movie, but most of the Avengers are there. That way you can give the movie a more interesting universe to work with, like how in the Flashpoint movie, the animated movie that is, Atlantis and Themyscira are at war, with humanity caught in between. You also have other interesting factors like Thomas Wayne as Batman, which, I mean, Michael Keaton as an older Batman kind of fulfills the same role, but still, with this fix to the script, I think that it could have made it a lot more interesting, because you're already dealing with a plot and a premise that is so similar to everything else, and you had the perfect recipe to copy from a movie that Warner Brothers already produced, and there would be no backlash and no consequences that you would have to deal with, because this movie is the last of this universe. You can literally have the end of this movie reset everything. I swear that was the plan at some point or another. But yeah, please don't see this movie. Ezra Miller doesn't need the money. Warner Brothers doesn't need the money. Everybody just stay home. But anyway, if you made it to the end, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.